We're surrounded by systems that are built to keep us safe, to warn us when things are about to go wrong. But what happens when those warnings just become noise? Today, we're going to dig into a really interesting paradox: how the very alarms meant to stop a disaster can actually sometimes become the thing that causes one.
Okay, let's start with something we've all seen, and let's be honest, probably ignored at some point: the check engine light. The source material for this explainer calls it, and I love this, one of the worst alarm designs in history. And why is that? Well, because it tells you something is wrong, but it gives you absolutely no clue what is wrong, how serious it is, or what on earth you're supposed to do about it. It's so vague that it pretty much teaches us all a really bad habit: to just tune alarms out.
So, that little light in your car brings us to the big question for today. What if this isn't just about our cars? What happens when you take this problem and scale it up to, say, a power plant or a massive oil refinery? What if the safety systems designed to protect people and the environment are, in fact, making things a whole lot worse? To really get how we ended up in this situation, we kind of have to look back at how these systems came to be. This problem didn't just pop up out of nowhere. It's the result of a huge shift in technology. So, if you go back, not even that long ago, a control room looked pretty much like this. Every single alarm, every light, every switch was a real, physical thing. If you wanted to add a new alarm, it meant drilling holes, running wires, and most importantly, spending real money. And because both space and money were tight, engineers had to be super selective. Every single alarm had to earn its place on that panel. And then the digital revolution happened. Control systems went from these big physical boards to computer screens. And when that happened, something huge changed. Alarms weren't hardware anymore. They were just software. They became essentially free. With just a couple of clicks, an engineer could add 10, 20, 100 new alarms, and it cost absolutely nothing. And the result, as you can see from this graph, was just staggering. The number of alarms per operator didn't just go up, it went through the roof. And this is what that actually looks like. That wild line jumping all over the place, that's a pretty typical alarm rate for a plant over a few weeks. We're talking thousands of alarms a day. Now see those little dotted and dashed lines way down at the bottom? That's what a human being can realistically handle. The gap between what the system is screaming and what a person can actually hear is just enormous. We've built systems that generate way more information than any person can possibly make sense of. Now, this isn't just an inconvenience. It's a serious problem. When an operator gets overwhelmed like this, it has a name. It's called an alarm flood. And these floods have real and sometimes truly catastrophic consequences. Just take a look at this quote. This is from an actual accident investigation report for a major refinery disaster. Let that sink in for a minute. 2 operators, 275 alarms in 11 minutes. That is a new alarm firing every 2.4 seconds. It is physically impossible for anyone to deal with that. The alarm system, which was supposed to be a layer of safety, became the opposite. It was a wall of noise that made it impossible to find the 1 or 2 signals that actually mattered. And beyond the huge safety risks, as if those weren't enough, there's a massive financial cost here too. This chart kind of shows how even small problems, which are often made worse by a bad alarm system, can slowly eat away at profits. But the real killer is that big red arrow. One single major shutdown caused by a missed alarm can completely wipe out every single penny of profit you gained from a whole year of trying to make things run better. So it's a huge problem. But the good news is it's a solvable one. There's actually a formal discipline for fixing this. It's called alarm management, and it's all about systematically turning that wall of noise back into useful, actionable information. Now, the official handbook lays out this whole detailed 7-step process, but you can really boil it down to 3 core ideas. First, you have to create a philosophy. You have to clearly define what an alarm actually is in the first place. Second, you rationalize. That means you go through every single alarm in the system and force it to justify its existence. And third, you prioritize, so that the alarms that are truly critical can actually cut through all the clutter. That first step, the philosophy, is the foundation for absolutely everything else. And the definition of an alarm is incredibly important, and it's very strict. It is not just a status update, it is not an FYI. A real alarm is a notification that requires a specific, timely response from a person to stop something bad from happening. If no one needs to do anything, then it's not an alarm. Simple as that. It's just noise.
And this idea leads us right to prioritization. The target for a healthy system should look something like this. Best practice says that only about 5%, just 5, of your alarms should ever be labeled high priority. And why so few? Well, because if you want a high priority alarm to actually get someone's attention, it has to be rare. It's that old saying, right? If everything is an emergency, then nothing is.
So all of this makes sense. But why are we talking about it with so much urgency right now? Well, for decades, this stuff was just considered a best practice, a good idea. But that's all changing. It's quickly becoming a hard requirement. And the reason why can be summed up in this, well, let's call it a clumsy acronym, RAGAJEP. So what on earth is RAGAP? It stands for Recognized and Generally Accepted Good Engineering Practices. And here's why it's a huge deal. Regulatory agencies like OSHA use this very concept to enforce safety rules, and new industry standards have now officially classified proper alarm management as a RAGAP. What that does is it shifts this whole topic from being a nice-to-have to a regulatory expectation. Companies are now on the hook to do it right. And that brings us right back to where we started. We've been talking about these giant, complex industrial plants, but just for a second, think about your own life. Think about the endless pings from your phone, the constant waterfall of emails, the non-stop news alerts. In our world of constant notifications, where else are we all drowning in our own personal alarm flood? And what are the truly critical signals that we might be missing in all that noise?